Ah, what a nice day in my fine lab on this beautiful Minecraft day. Nothing could make this day any better. I mean, my lab is not very big, of course, but it keeps me safe from weather conditions outside. Such as meteors that Trenton makes. I'm gonna have to clean that up later. Anyhow, I am here today with one reason, and one reason only. I am gonna explain how flight works in my own fancy way. Minecraft. I mean, why not? I've done YouTube projects for my channel and school before, so why not do it again? I'm really glad they made an elytra for this game, or this wouldn't have even been possible. Well, what are we waiting for? Why don't we go? Now. I'm gonna open this, my lever. Let's go. Isn't it a nice day out today? Alright, so there are four main factors that impact flight. The first one is lift. Lift is how the plane gets off the ground. And basically, lift raises the plane up. And lift typically happens because of the plane's wings. The shape and the angle of the wings in the air more specifically. This happens because the airflow moving over the top curved surface has longer distance to travel and needs to go faster to have the same transit time as the air traveling along the lower, flat surface. This allows the plane to achieve lift and take off the ground. Without it, a plane wouldn't even be able to fly. Another major force of flight would be weight. Weight is a force that affects the plane from takeoff to landing. The weight of a plane makes it more heavy, thus requiring more energy to take it off the ground and making it harder for a plane to actually slow down. This also impacts the plane when it burns fuel in the gas tank. This makes the plane lighter during flight, and pilots need to account for that. Okay, now you might be wondering, exactly why do we need gravity? And well, I use myself to display this, and I don't have any weight, and I'm flying. Now, the third force of flight would be thrust, and to demonstrate this, I will be explaining how it works, but also using a reference from the game. Fireworks. The reason this is a good example is because propulsion moves the plane forward, and this can be generated in two main ways, including propellers and jet engines. I will explain both of them, but you'll see which one makes a little bit more sense in our example. Now, how a propeller works is by displacing air and pulling it behind itself. This movement of air then results in the aircraft being pushed forward and the resulting pressure difference. Now, a jet engine works by moving the airplane forward with a strong force that causes the plane to fly very fast. This typically happens because of the compressor in the jet engine, by compressing a lot of air, then releasing it out. That's a bit simplified, but that's essentially how it works. The firework is a good example in Minecraft, because in the game, holding a firework and using it in your hand causes thrust because of the explosion in the fuse of the rocket. By holding an exploding firework in your hand, you're essentially making yourself fly with an elytra. Yes, video game logic. Now, is this exactly a jet engine? Not at all. Is it sort of similar? I guess? Anyhow, without thrust, the plane would not be able to move forward, or at all. Now, have you ever put your hand outside the car door while it's moving? If you have, then you just demonstrated how drag works. Drag is a force of flight and the resistance generated when a plane moves through the air. When the plane is pushing against the air, it causes it to slow down because of the many particles in the space it is going through. These particles hinder the flight of a plane, and that's why planes are designed to have a more sleek shape, to cut through the air and hit as little particles as possible, and essentially working as if it's like scissors cutting through the air as effectively as possible. Oh, hey. For our next part, I will be talking about Newton's laws of motion, and what better way of telling you what those laws are than to just read them straight off the book and tell you. And that is what I have right here, so let's take a look. Now, our first law of motion is inertia. Newton's first law states that if a body is at rest or moving at a constant speed in a straight line, it will remain at rest or keep moving in a straight line at constant speed unless it is acted upon by a force. Now, our second law is F equals ma. The time rate of change of the momentum of a body is equal in both magnitude and direction to the force imposed on it. Translation, force is equal to mass times acceleration. And last but not least, law of action and reaction. When two bodies interact, they apply forces to one another that are equal in magnitude and opposite in direction. Translation, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Oh hey, look, there's a question. Explain which of Newton's laws would directly apply to the propulsion of a jet engine or a rocket engine, and why? Alright, give me a second please. Newton's third law. This is because of how the propulsion of the rocket works. A rocket works by pushing exhaust gas in one direction and creating thrust to move the plane in a straight direction. This represents that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, with the exhaust gas being pushed in one direction and creating an equal and opposite reaction by moving the jet forward. Now, you might be thinking, exactly how am I turning around and stuff? I mean, how does a plane do that? And well, it's simple. How I do it is I have a keyboard and I have a mouse, but how a plane does it is much different. Now, the plane uses multiple parts to make it move in various directions. It uses the ailerons to make the plane move left and right. This works because of the angle of attack the pieces have on the air. When these pieces move and change angle on the air pressure is different and causes the plane to move in the direction of where air pressure is lower. Because of the angle the ailerons have, they make the plane move left and right. Now, the elevators are used to move the plane up and down instead, but they use the same method as the ailerons, except it does it vertically. Now we're going to be explaining how trigonometry would help someone know how high a pop bottle or toy rocket has flown. Now, trigonometry is kind of an interesting subject, and first we will have to explain what SOHCAHTOA is. SOHCAHTOA is basically a fun way of saying and remembering sine, cosine, and tangent. Sine is opposite side divided by hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent side divided by hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite side divided by adjacent side. However, for our example, we will only be using sine as we are trying to find the opposite side, the height, instead. Now, to actually put this to use, imagine we launched a rocket at a 35-degree angle with the hypotenuse side distance being 12 meters and an unknown opposite side. This is the height we are trying to find. So to start out, we'll begin calculating sine theta, which in our case would be sine 35 degrees, which would be equal to x divided by 12, which x would be our opposite side. So calculating that, we'll get 0.57 for our sine calculation, which is equal to x divided by 12. But now we want to find out what x actually is, so what we'll do is a little trick. Instead of imagining 0.57 equals x divided by 12, we instead have 3 equals 6 divided by 12. Now we have a much simpler concept to figure out, and because 6 in our case is replacing x, and to find 6 with the two numbers, we will instead multiply. It sounds complicated, but it's easier shown in the video. This would make 3 times 2, which is equal to 6, which in our case, x would equal to 12 multiplied by 0.57, so that would make x is equal to 6.88 meters. And that exactly is how high it is.